Hello, everyone. Now have Chad Scott on with me. We are going to be talking more about America's strategic presence in the world. But what I really want to focus on is a post he made not too long ago where he mentioned America having to be a nuclear deterrent to two countries now, not just
Mhm.
one. Chad, you want to talk about yourself? Tell us your
Yeah.
credentials.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean,
One thing, who's your favorite TikToker and why is it me?
it's obviously no, for real though, I have got to give you huge props. And I told you this already in our little group chat about your connection to Scott Galloway because my
Ah!
goodness, that dude is in my legendary status. I have read all his books. I mean, and this was before I started getting into Scott Galloway before I became a social media
Mm,
presence. But no, I mean, that's impressive. So I mean,
Thank you
you
so
are
much.
absolutely up there, and there's a reason Scott sings your praises, and I do too. But yeah, there's a wealth of knowledge out there, and you're one of them. So,
Thank you.
but I guess about me, if a lot of your followers probably follow me, but but just kind of around the world. I grew up in the army. I was an army officer. My true like branching was logistics, but I worked heavily in the artillery world, which is what I did in NATO. I did artillery logistics, and so because of that, I kind of gained some really great insights in Russian artillery, in European artillery,
Okay.
because it's a kind of a universal. And I became a NATO exercise planner and just really dove heavily into the world of NATO and countering Russia, the near peer fights, etc. While I was doing that, I started looking into education and went to Johns Hopkins, got my degree in policy, and then finished my master's thesis there was on actually China, which is weird. So I have this weird
Huh,
Eurasian kind
yeah.
of mix here where my education is focused on China and Taiwan, countering them, and then my experience is in Europe. So I had this really unique kind of mix. And then one day I just made a TikTok just for fun on why I thought Russia was going to lose this war. This was in probably March. I think it was March 3rd of 2022. So it was like 10 days after the invasion,
I saw it.
and it took off, weirdly took off, and the rest is history. And here I am talking to you because uh yeah, I've become kind of this expresser of pro Ukrainian, broad Eurasian partnership, transatlantic partnership voices for Americans and things like that. So that's a bit
Absolutely.
of my
Yeah.
background. Yeah.
You're a
So
geopolitical figure now.
yeah, yeah, I get that. With all the benefits and the detriments that come with that.
All the
All
accusations
the
that we are working for the CIA or the
Yeah.
FBI or I don't even know anymore.
Were you getting your CIA checks consistently? Because I
I
know
get
I
my
am
NATO
every
checks.
day.
Apparently, I get my NATO checks. Yes, exactly. Every day. That's how
Every
the payment
just
system
comes
works.
in. Yeah, every day I make a post. And they're like,
I mean,
yeah.
that's why you drive what, a Nissan something and I drive a POS minivan.
You joke,
You know,
I drive a Nissan Frontier.
Oh yeah, because I remember you did a pretty good parody post where
Yeah, for
you're
sure.
speaking with your CIA handler like, hey, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that was
Yep.
good. That was
Yeah,
funny.
for sure.
All right, so like I said, I want to talk about the America nuclear deterrence thing, but after that, I do want to talk more about like just overall China and your perspective. But first, I definitely want to pick your brain about what you said in your earlier post where
Mhm.
during the Cold War, the United States only had one nuclear threat, and that was the USSR. And, they had so many nukes, but we were able to deter their usage because we were able to guarantee a second strike if they
Mhm.
did strike first. And most of our military infrastructure was built on having one nuclear threat. But now we have China, and you said how China has really been expanding their nuclear program. And now they're seeking to have 1,500 deployable
Yeah.
nukes by 2030 or 2035?
Mid 2030s. I think it's 1,000 by 2030, and then by the mid broadly, I just to for ease,
Mm.
it's 2035. They'll have 1,500, and that's just to come to parity with the United States and Russia at this point, because that's what we largely
And
have
you're
deployable.
concerned that we right now don't have the infrastructure to counter two countries as a
Hmm.
nuclear threat. So it's not necessarily the amount, but it's the fact that it's two potential locations, I guess, right? That we
Yeah.
have to.
What I want to start out with is I don't want it's not basic arithmetic here. I don't want people to think, and I talk about this in my videos, so people may be hearing this again, but I don't want people to think that because Russia has 1,550 deployable nukes right now, and that's what it was under the New START treaty, which just expired earlier
Mhm.
this month. And now Russia is seeking to get to 1,500. That suddenly the United States needs to have 3,000 nuclear warheads
Yeah.
ready to go. That is, first of all, that's just cost prohibitive. Maintaining a nuclear program is extraordinarily expensive. It is one of the
Yeah.
most expensive things that any country can maintain. And a lot of people think that our non-proliferation actions with Russia and others have been the reason countries haven't developed nuclear weapons. A lot of it is just because it's very, very expensive.
We
So I
spent
don't.
enough every year, at least until the Ukraine war, we spent about $80 billion a year to maintain our nukes, and that's the entirety of Russia's military budget, at
Yeah,
least before
exactly.
the Ukraine war. So that's how
Yeah,
expensive it is to maintain
yeah.
nukes. Okay.
And that was before the modernization efforts, because we
Wow.
started about 10 years ago, a modernization effort where we wanted to replace the Minuteman III with the Sentinel, and we're
Mhm.
trying to replace the Ohio class subs with a Columbia class,
Not
all with the thought process of bolstering our nuclear capability. But the fact is we don't necessarily need a one for one for both. We don't need to say, okay, China, you have 1,500, Russia, you have 1,500. We need 3,000. What we need is the credible deterrence. And how you
yes.
do that, how you
More
get that
nukes won't
credit.
won't be credible.
Yeah,
It's just not
we're
enough.
going to end the world 4 times instead of three. I mean,
Yes,
it's really not
exactly.
how the math should work. It's really survivability for second strike. And of the nuclear triad, now for the nuclear people that don't know, nuclear triad is our ground-based ballistic missile
Mhm.
capability, which we operate in places like Minot and other states in the U.S. And then we have our bomber-based, which is the B-2, and then soon to be the B-21 Raider that we operate out of Europe, as well as our own here in the U.S. And then we have our most effective and most capable nuclear deterrent is the submarine-launched ballistic missiles, and
That's
that is
the
the
Ohio
Trident.
class sub, right?
Yeah, that's the
Can
Ohio
you
class submarine.
can you talk about how insane the Ohio class submarine is? And remember, this is getting upgraded to something even
Yeah.
crazy. So please
It
tell us about the Ohio.
it is an absolute wild piece of technology. So 20 to 30 years ago, when this submarine was at the time the best in the world, there was nothing that could even come close to touching it.
Yeah.
Since then, that submarine has remained the pinnacle of absolute submarine dominance when it comes to ballistic missile launch. Now we have the other ones, we have our attack submarines and things like that, and our hunter killers and whatnot. But the Ohio class was deemed to be effective all the way potentially through 2100. That's
Wow.
how that's how effective it was. But and I'll say this a bit kind of tongue in cheek, even though it was that effective, I think the military industrial complex kind of got to the politicians, was like, we need a better, bigger version that was
Yeah.
more silent than absolutely silent with the nuclear capability and the nuclear reactors and things like that. Nonetheless, the Columbia class is going to be even more deadly. It's basically the type of submarine that you can park off the coast of any country. I don't care what country it is, whether it's China, Russia, any country, and you immediately have a military ending threat. It is an immediate threat to that country where they have to make real decisions as to whether they can continue any kind of fight. And because of that, it is an enormous strategic asset. We
Yeah.
love to look at our cool ballistic missiles that are launched, and we see the movies where the smoke
Yes,
trails
of course.
launching, and the cool stealth bombers. That is very minor in comparison to our submarine launched ballistic missile capability. If
And
there is
right
a
now,
survivable.
I wanna interrupt because
Yeah, for sure.
you mentioned a detail that was so cool 2 years ago that the each Ohio class sub is the 7th largest nuclear power in the world. Each of
Yeah.
them, because they have over, what, 196 warheads in total?
Yeah, it's that number's fluctuated a
Oh,
bit, and
okay.
actually, since the treaties have expired, it can grow because of the MIRV, the ability to MIRV and things like, which is independently targetable launch vehicles
Mhm.
or something like that. But basically, MIRVing is where you have multiple warheads on a single missile.
Yeah.
And when you think of the ballistic missile capability that the United States brings to bear, it's not just one Ohio class. So you see other countries with nuclear weapons. You see like the Brits, and they have one or two,
Yeah.
usually one deployed. The United States, they'll have 4, 5, 6, sometimes,
Yeah.
depending on the threat environment, deployed. And we're talking the ability to just absolutely obliterate. And I'm not saying this like I'm a geek when it comes to warfare. Very serious concern for when you think about it with Russia and China, this is something they absolutely do not have the ability to counter. For this submarine to absolutely devastate a country as a second strike, survivable. It is absolutely what will survive in a
Yeah.
nuclear exchange, and that is the U.S.'s trump card, and that's why you don't have a nuclear triad out of the United Kingdom. They just see submarines as such a powerful entity that that's all they field
Yeah.
so that's how strong it is. And that single submarine being off the coast of China doesn't makes it so it doesn't matter how many nuclear weapons China has. So that's where kind of my core argument is we don't need to match one for one.
No.
We need to make sure that we have the capability to say, hey, you may have a lot of nukes, but you can't find where are at right now. And if you launch even one, we will hit Shanghai,
Yes.
Beijing, all of them, and it's going to be game over immediately.
Because
And
it'll
the
be
submarines do
minutes.
that. Yeah, and so
Their
that's
missiles
where
can take maybe not an hour, but, okay, like, let's say
30
almost an
about
hour.
30 minutes. It's
About
about 30
30
minutes.
minutes, but, like, an American be if the submarine's right by China, like, 2 minutes.
Yeah, it's
You have
right
2
there.
minutes to
It's
prepare
gone.
for nuclear and
And we're the only country with a credible missile defense. Now, we can't shoot down everything. I
yes.
would venture to argue that our capability to shoot down incoming missiles ranges in anywhere between 30 to 60% of the missiles incoming.
Can
But
you
yeah,
elaborate more on that? Because that's what I was gonna say. I think instead of just deterrence, I think I'm not gonna say Golden Dome because,
yeah,
ew, golden. Like,
yeah.
whenever I thi yeah, but if we do if we do have certain missile defense systems over key nerve centers and cities, then part of the deterrence system that you may launch your nukes may not make it. They may not
Mhm.
be anywhere close to making it, and then here we come.
So it's something to kind of bring it back is to think
That's what we
about
should
these.
invest in, I'm saying, not that we have.
Yeah, the defenses, and that's something that we traditionally have been investing in. And actually, it's been concerning because it has thrown up red flags on the what we would call the balance of deterrence. So
Mhm.
it used to be called the like mutually assured destruction.
Oh,
So
yeah,
this whole
MAS.
idea of MAD, and so what you would have is they could kill us and we could kill them. So no one's doing any killing whatsoever. The problem is the United States became so technologically advanced in the ability to shoot a bullet with a bullet, essentially, that
Yes, yes.
Russia and China are concerned now. They are
Yeah,
sitting there going, "Wait, there's no deterrence then if we all our missiles are rendered ineffective." And
yeah,
when you look at the defenses, it's not we don't put them over cities and things like that because the interceptors strike in the launch phase as they're heading into
yeah,
space.
yes,
We try to destroy the missiles over their countries, not ours. Now, there's been some thoughts about trying to destroy the missiles as they're in their terminal phase when they're heading towards us, but that's usually when the warhead is separated from the booster and everything like that, and
yeah,
they become very, very small, and it's difficult. There's been some theories and some apparent success in things like Patriot being able to
yes.
intercept the newer versions, but things like THAAD and Aegis, those
What
are
is that?
designed.
Tell
So
us
it's
what that is.
it is the terminal. I'm gonna get it's the terminal high altitude air defense. It's
So that's for the
THAAD.
when they're really high up in the air, right? That's when the missiles are really, really, really high up. They've just peaked or something, right?
Yeah, it's in that kind of immediate, not immediate launch because you have to detect, and it's in that kind of they've started their phase to arc over, but you want to shoot them down with the when they're in the booster because once they're terminal, it's very difficult, especially if they're using
Yeah.
things like hypersonic glide vehicles where you can turn and things like that. Now, I want to caveat that all ballistic missiles are hypersonic by definition.
Once they
It's
start
just the
falling.
yeah, it's just the glide vehicle phase means that they can kind of start turning and things, making them
Mhm.
more difficult to hit. But ballistic missiles were always difficult to hit because the Russians, they were smart, and so are the Chinese, and so are the US. What they would do is they would put dummy warheads in.
Yeah.
So a MIRVed system would release the nuclear weapons from a single rocket, and we would go, okay, hit that one, hit that one, hit that one. Some of them would be dummies, and we'd be wasting our defense systems. That is why credibly we can say just a nice round number we might be able to hit half of the incoming missiles. But I want to caveat that with we're the only ones on earth that can even do that. Russia cannot intercept ballistic missiles and neither can China. When we launch, they're taking it straight to the face.
Yeah.
So like, they don't have those defenses.
And do you remember 2.5, 3 years ago when our Patriot systems, at least the 90s versions, in Ukraine, were taking down the Russian Kinzhals, which were supposed
Yeah.
to be hypersonics?
Yeah, they were.
And you made a post about that. You said that we just created, I guess it was kind of a game-changing event because that was the questioning of MAD. That was the
Yeah.
questioning of mutually assured destruction. If our antiquated technology, not antiquated, but like if our older tech from the 90s is taking down Russia's most advanced at the time hypersonic, then what does China and
Yeah,
Russia
it's
really have in
it
comparison?
and to be fair, those countries also have their own triad. So Russia has
Mm,
nuclear launch capable
sure.
submarines. China's developing them as well. So the time distance factor will reestablish that mutually assured destruction
Yes.
kind of realm. But understand that the term MAD is becoming antiquated with technology because we are able to tip the scales. We aren't able to tip the scales enough that it wipes out the threat, but what we can do is lean heavily. It's almost like the using the $10,000 drone against a $500,000 tank.
Yes.
They can build nuclear weapons that cost millions upon millions of dollars, but we can build an interceptor that may only cost, I don't know, $2, $3 million. And it's effective as a deterrent. And so the idea, and it's the similar idea as we had with the Cold War, was kind of make it so that they have to keep spending so much
Yes.
money that it
Yes.
inevitably causes them economic problems. And that's kind of the realm we're at when it comes to China, where they want to build 1,000 more nuclear weapons just so that they can have the geostrategic look at us big boy pants like the US
Yeah.
and Russia. But that's going to cost them several billions of dollars, and they're facing an economic challenge right
They
now.
also
So
want 6 aircraft carriers in 10
yeah,
years.
yeah. So they're trying to build out a capability the US has that took the US 80 years to build. They're trying to do it in about 20 to 25 years. And they are trying to do it with half the funding. And it's just they're going to end up cutting corners and things like that. But it's one of those where I have absolute confidence that the US, we don't need to go tit for tat with them. We just
No.
need to make sure that our command and control infrastructure is protected against cyber attacks.
Yeah.
Our ability to deploy our submarines is strong. Our B-2 and B-21 Raider programs, they're
Has no
still second to
competition.
none. There's no
Yeah.
competition, not even
So
close.
now I actually have a question. I made a post a couple days ago about Iran and China reaching a deal with not hypersonics, but the supersonic anti-ship missiles
Yeah,
from China.
the
The
sea
CM,
skimmers. Yeah,
yes, CM-302.
yeah.
And I thought that China called it the carrier killer, but no, actually, our analysts are calling it the carrier killer. But my thing is, all right, what tested the CM-302 on to call it a carrier killer? I would like to know what carriers that they actually tried. Was this a moving target that they were practicing on? Because I'm under the impression that once you're going at supersonic speeds, accuracy is sacrificed
Yeah,
because it's
yeah.
it's a horizontal shot. It's not arcing or anything. Well,
Mhm.
so if an aircraft carrier is traveling at 30 knots, I'm guessing that's significantly harder to hit than if it was, I don't want to say docked or parked. I don't know. What do you do? What do you call a ship when it's just staying in one place? Is it anchored?
Yeah, anchored, I think. I'm an
I
army guy.
guess.
I don't know.
Okay. So there's that. And then there's also the fact that like Iran, they may actually have the CM-302s eventually, but can they operate it effectively when their air defense equipment, they seem to have trouble operating their own air defense
Mhm.
equipment against their own fighter jets. So what do you think?
Well, there is, I think, like anything coming out of Iran right now, there's just a desperation to get the United States to pump its brakes. Yes,
Mm,
the Chinese sea skimming missiles can be dangerous within a certain effective range. The funny thing is that effective range is not as far as our carrier-based
sure.
fighter jets.
300 kilometers, right? That's the
So so what ends up happening is these were designed to engage within the range of Taiwan, which is about 100 miles. And so
Mhm.
when the Chinese developed these, they weren't really thinking of, hey, maybe Iran could use these in the Persian Gulf or in the
Yeah.
Arabian Sea or something like that. And so what the US is doing is they're just like, okay, we see that you have these new Chinese missiles. Maybe it's not, and I have heard reports both ways that it's confirmed or unconfirmed, or that they have them, but they just haven't been trained on them. Whatever. We'll just make the assumption they have them and can use
Yeah.
them. The US is just parking their carriers further away.
Yeah.
So
400 miles, like 2, 3,
yeah,
okay,
it's
if the range is 300 kilometers, you park 400 kilometers away.
yeah,
Boom.
And so, when what the US has always used when it comes to a dual carrier setup is called an inside outside structure. So you have one inside the engagement zone and one outside the engagement zone. And you're constantly looping those back and forth to keep one in and out. So you can't necessarily target a specific. So one comes into the engagement zone, launches its sorties to go and bomb
Yeah.
air defenses or whatever it's doing. And then mission comes back, that one exits the zone, and the other one comes in, and it keeps the enemy from being able to just say, all right, target this, hit it, and go. These ships are not within range of the current Chinese sea skimming missiles. The Iranians would have to get on their ships and float closer to the strike group, and the minute that happens, the United States will immediately engage and destroy those ships. Those carrier
Yeah.
strike groups are set up in a manner that you protect the crown jewel, which is the carrier,
Yeah.
and they have incredible defenses. This is
Yes.
probably any carrier strike group is going to be the most defended piece of earth or water
Yeah.
on the face of the earth. And they
Yeah.
have, whether it's the Aegis, or which is or even all the way down to their their phalanx gun, which is, if you ever see, it's the
Oh
cool
my
gun
god,
that,
yeah, the phalanx, Jesus Christ, they fire like what, like 1,000 bullets in like 8
yeah,
seconds. It's
it's
crazy numbers.
I saw a cool testing of one on a drone, and the new version of this that's going on these ships, a drone was coming in, it spun, engaged the drone, destroyed it, and then it proceeded to shoot the pieces of the drone out of the air. So it would shoot the drone, and then the drone would explode, and suddenly there's pieces of drone kind of floating, and the gun would be like shooting the
Wow.
pieces. And this doesn't even count the new laser based systems that we're going to be using and
Yeah.
things like that. So I'm not concerned about the ships.
Can I
My
add
cons
on? Can I add
Yeah, go
on?
ahead.
Because I feel like so much of this knowledge is given for, yeah, it's a given, you just know it. But I think the aircraft carrier itself is so heavily has its
Yeah.
own defenses. Aside from the fighter jets, it has its own defenses, like you said. But then it's flanked by at least what, 2 submarines,
Yeah.
destroyers, cruise missile. Like what is it? A
Yeah,
cruise air? What is it? A
they
cruise
have
missile
guided
cruiser?
missile cruisers, the
Yeah,
guided
guided
missile
missile cruisers.
cruisers, destroyers. Yeah, it's impressive.
It is. And now a funny thing about not just drones, but talking about the MIRVs, even with when we were talking about nuclear deterrence, we have the Sky Ranger, right? Have you heard about the Sky Ranger?
I've heard of variants of it, but I haven't heard it being fielded yet. So I'm not entirely sure what its
So
capabilities are.
habitual line crosser he just started talking about it. I
Well,
want
he
to
would
read more.
know. That dude would know for
Yeah,
sure.
yes, of course. Well, he was an operator for the Patriot systems, right? But now he like
Yeah, I
teaches.
think he was an air defense guy, like an
So
ADA branch. So he would definitely know.
yeah. And with the way he talked about it, like I think he opened up his post with like, okay, so I guess we don't really need so many drones anymore and he just talked about the way that the Sky Rangers could attack so many different targets all at once.
Well, I mean, I don't know if have you seen the German? It's just basically an anti-drone machine gun that's based on the same technology as the phalanx gun, but just in a more compact mobile
German or
device. And
Swedish? Because I've seen the Swedish one where
it might be Swedish,
it's like
but
it's like these little machine guns that they all lock, and it's so cool.
yeah. So we'll see how the drone warfare goes. It's currently, the scale is heavily tipped in favor of drones, but the defense will come eventually, I think, in that
Well,
regard.
I'm a big fan of the Leonidas systems.
I haven't heard of that one.
So Epirus made this anti-drone weapon. It's called the Leonidas, and it's been tested. It's being fielded right now, or is it like it's gone through testing from the U.S. Army, and
Mhm.
now it's somewhere in the Pacific. But it's pretty much this thing that's about the size of a pickup truck,
Yeah.
and then it's like this big table, and it just fires microwaves.
Oh, okay. I've seen that. I didn't know that's what it was called, but I've seen the pictures of it.
And it goes 360.
That's cool.
So 360, all angles, everything. So it can take out hundreds or thousands of drones in a minute.
So
And
it's just like basically a big span of, it's almost like a radar, but it's dangerous for
yes,
drones, essentially. Yeah.
exactly. A radar that's dangerous for
It's
drones.
like a high powered microwave weapon. Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. I think HP, it's actually, well, it has one of those really nice abbreviations.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I believe Epirus is an American company, but it's not. I think there's only a few, but if it successfully goes through all of its fielding, then I guess they'll start mass producing it in like a
Mhm.
year or two or something like that. But if that's the case, then all right. I mean, game over. It doesn't even matter if the fiber optic drones are being run because the Leonidas will just cook. We'll just cook it. We'll
Yeah.
just cook the guidance systems.
It's kind of funny because we were experiencing this. So in my last year working in Hohenfels at the Joint Multinational Readiness Center, when we were training multinational partners on how to deter the Russians, how to fight the Russians, it started becoming abundantly clear that the more technology evolved, the more technology became obsolete. It was kind of this
Mhm,
funny circular thinking where when we were in like the global war on terror era, where we were like in these big talks and these
mhm,
tactical operations centers and tents, and we had all the big screens up and everyone sat at a bank of computers and we were all
mhm,
talking and drone strikes and all that gee whiz cool stuff. All of that creates a signature, whether it's a heat signature, an
yep,
electronic warfare signature. And we learned very quickly that an enemy that is capable, that isn't just dudes with AKs, can find that stuff and strike. So what we ended up having to train is we're going back to Vietnam, back to World War II era, where you got a map with a red lens flashlight in the dirt. And this is how you're moving, because if you turn on your GPS, it sends a signal out and the Russians can detect that.
wow,
Actually, the Ukrainians were like masters at this, finding cell phone signals and just targeting them with fires, with artillery strikes. And it was kind of a proof of what our theory, that we no longer can use technology on the battlefield. And I think drones is that kind of that at that initial first mover stage where, yes, the drones are incredibly deadly, but once the defenses come online and eventually catch up, I think
mhm,
drones themselves may become obsolete, and we are going to end up boiling down to the technology is just, once again, it's just a guy with a gun shooting at another guy with a gun on the ground, and that's
yeah.
how you take ground, unfortunately. And
Yeah, and
it's
maybe he'll have an anti-drone device on his arm that he'll
yeah,
just fire like he's the Human
yeah,
Torch. Just I'd be pretty cool. Honestly, 18-year-old me is like, "That'd be so cool, I'll join the
just
army."
mech suits. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, okay. The whole killing people though, that's not something I'd like
no,
to do. That's
yeah,
okay.
there is that. We're like, yeah, cool, and then we're like, wait, that's not
I
that
like
cool.
to be humanitarian. So it's been a half hour. So what I do is I just I cut this part off, and then the rest goes to Patreon, my paid Patreon. So
Yeah, for
anyone,
sure.
if you want to watch the rest of this, just sign up for a membership on my Patreon, and now we'll just continue.